28th. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes. Cheryl had requested, she'd like the Transportation Committee to give a standing report under new business. And then under item 1 on the current agenda, the Inlet View School Traffic Study with Brad Coy, that is still not ready to be presented on. He doesn't have it fully prepared. So Brad will not be presenting. So what I'd like to do is to swap that out and put the Transportation Committee in its place, and Cheryl has a report she'd like to give.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the changes?
I motion. This is Anna Boson.
I second. Sorry about that. I second.
Okay. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. And can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
the ayes have it. Senator Begich, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Let me try to turn my camera on here. I've had a little bit of problems with this. Oh, look, I'm in the dark. We're closing in on the end of session. Very quickly, the capital budget was revealed yesterday. Operating budget on the Senate side, that's where it starts. On the operating side, the operating budget has also been revealed from the House, came over to the Senate. Senate generally kept it. And then, just so you guys know, most of the priorities set by my caucus have been included in the budget, which is a unique situation. We've also had a series of meetings with the governor, and we're very hopeful that a number of these items won't be vetoed. Let me just highlight a couple of items in terms of the overarching budget that might be of interest. Number one, full funding for the infrastructure for the food bank. That was a priority of our caucus. Upgrading of the University of Alaska's IT system. I have staff members younger than the IT system at the University of Alaska. That was one of our highest priorities. Retiring $100 million in school major maintenance. Back funding the school debt reimbursement, which leads to, and Margot, this is for your, we don't know how much of this will survive the veto pen, but that could be as much as $90 million rebated to Anchorage for the school debt reimbursement. Correlating with that was the Rural Schools Fund, which was finally replenished after being illegally not replenished for 3 years. And that is sitting at around, after it settles, it'll be at about $70 million. Forward funding education to the tune of $1.2 billion, putting that in the savings account so that we actually forward fund education. There's substantial money that we negotiated at the very last minute, $18.7 million for effectively itinerant housing for teachers, public safety employees, and itinerant health and social services employees in rural areas. We have this grant program that we haven't fully funded, so this will actually help meet those needs and then allow statewide for things to happen. Around the Anchorage area, Long Trail was once again put in, and I've got some assurances that all of that $14.7 million, $14.8 million will actually make it past the veto pen. That actually comes through our district as well. A portion of it does. This is exciting news. This is a trail from Seward to Fairbanks. It's a huge tourist thing. It's like an Appalachian trail. That's was one of our highest priorities, and that's in the budget. That cursory look, overall the budget looks at the governor's, expands it in some degree, and I think is really helpful and really hopeful. I believe in the end the budgets will be combined in some manner, and that it'll be a negotiation that'll be relatively swift, and it should lead to adjournment sometime around the 18th of May. There are a couple of bills that you should be aware of as well. Senate Bill 111, I've been advocating for some version of this bill for many years. This is early education and reading, K through 3. This early education bill would actually upload our pre-kindergarten programming in Alaska, if it meets quality standards, into the ADM, the average daily membership. That means it goes into the base student allocation, becomes part of our formula. That is a huge change. It's passed the Senate 15-0. There were 5 absences that day. And it's in the House Education Committee, where they are assuring me they will put a committee substitute out, which is sort of their version of it, sometime in the next 8 days. It has time to pass both bodies. If it does, it'll be groundbreaking, and the governor's indicated as long as it continues to meet the criteria that came out of the Senate for the most part, he will sign it into law. That is massive. There's a second major initiative that the House majority minority, the Senate majority minority, and the governor agree on, and that's turning the Alaska Industrial Development Bank, Industrial Development Fund into a effectively a green bank to help fund conversion to alternative energy throughout Alaska because of the high cost of diesel fuel and other things. The governor's online for that. A number of the rest of us are as well. I'm here in town tonight. I just got into town because I'll be at the teaching symposium or the reading symposium tomorrow, presenting a few things. Then I have to run back for some negotiations on Saturday and Sunday. But just wanted you to know those are the major things that are happening. The Senate's working fairly smoothly. We had a little bit of a dust up yesterday, but we worked it out. If you weren't watching, it's too long. I'm not going to go into it. Suffice it to say that we came out of it a stronger Senate, a stronger minority. And at this point, there's some neighborhood things too that we've gotten approved, but I can't tell you what they are yet because I haven't seen the final numbers. But some of our CAPSIS requests we were able to get into the reappropriations, and the governor has indicated that they will not be, will likely, he said, not be vetoed. So I'll let you know what those are. A last piece, tomorrow there'll be a report issued around the Knik Arm bridge, and I think you will find that fascinating. It took us 2.5 years to get that report. It's embargoed until tomorrow. I can't tell you much more about it except that because of the embargo, but suffice it to say, that's a project that isn't likely to be built. If it were, it would do tremendous traffic damage to downtown. And so I'm hopeful that that the report underscores our belief that that bridge should not be built. That is my very brief report, John. I hope it was brief enough. I'm open for questions.
Any questions for Senator Begich?
Anna mentioned in the chat, she says, I attended a search and rescue peer exchange, and several search and rescue agencies are concerned about emergency needs for the new trail system. Specifically, many are volunteer agencies as is and strapped for equipment and trainings around the state.
Easy question to answer, Anna. Part of the reason that the huge amount of money that's involved with this project is it's phased in over time. There's no work that's going to go on with this project that doesn't have extensive review. And those are the exact kinds of comments that we need to hear so that we can ensure that we're providing the resources necessary. This system is going to be fairly closely aligned with our road system. It's not going to be that far off of it. So in most instances, so it's going to be paced, it's going to be developed, and it was a high priority for Senator Wielechowski, Senator Gray Jackson, and myself, and we've managed to make it mesh, and I'm certain that we will be taking that into consideration as we move forward. Lois, you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Tom. There are a lot of us who have been following the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority and have some pretty substantial critiques about their operations. And You mentioned the Green Bank, and that would be located within Ada. Is there any chance of putting in some protections that would basically adjusting the bill? I know there's been some effort not to change it.
So here's the way you get to that. If you want to move to the Green Bank concept, you have to figure out where's the veto line. Where's that line? So Matt Clayman, Representative Clayman, pushed a pretty aggressive Ada reorg as part of the Green Bank effort on the House side. That brought the Green Bank concept, which is also a concept in 2 of my bills that have been incorporated into that bill, into a stopping point on the Senate side while we waited for the House to work that out. So Representative Clayman and the administration have been trying to work out how they can do some level of Ada organizational structure change, to add some protections in there without the wholesale change initially proposed by Matt. Matt's a negotiator. I think he initially proposed things that he knew wouldn't be accepted. and he's been trying to work toward that. My guess is
And Andy
my guess-
Josephson too?
yeah, Andy's been involved as well.
Yeah.
My guess is that I'm saying Matt because Matt was the one who initially led those charges to try to put the really, really strong changes in there. And then Andy put some significant changes in there as well. The two of them, whatever comes out of the House will go to the Senate. The final version will come out of the Senate. And my hope is it'll be a version that does some structural change to ADA. We've had problems with them. You know that. We've had, the sole source contracts and other things. But if we can get a combination that works for everybody, it'll be a good thing for Alaska. If it doesn't go, then it'll be a starting point for next year. But what I'm constantly reminding people is if we're going to go for the perfect, we're never going to get the good. And if we can get the good, we can always make it more perfect next time around. And so that's what I've been trying to do. Those are good questions, Lois. We're going to take it as close as we can to get it under the veto pin. If it isn't going to, I'll tell you, the co-chairs of finance are not putting a bill on the table that is going to, in some way, yeah, they're both Republicans, but they're not going to put a bill on the table that in some way does not have controls over ADA to some degree. That's the Senate believes that the governor has run a bit rogue in how he has held and handled some of his agencies. So there's not a lot of love there. Let me put it that way. Sheila.
We've worked for a long time with the state about the roads, the big major roads, A, C, and L. And the reality is that they nod their head and they talk to us and they agree with us when we're all in the same room. And then our recommendations get completely ignored in many cases. And the current one is the problems in terms of speed and noise in schools around, for me, anyhow, for what I see, is C Street and A Street and also L Street. And what we recommended is it's a national standard for a complete like street where they recognize fast moving these traffic kind of corridors are really a problem. And they're recommended at a national level. And what we recommended is that for our streets. And the state said that they don't do that. They just don't do that, and it is just not really adequate of an answer. I mean, I'm really scared that we're going to have some dead kids and they really need to slow it down and deal with it. And we need some help in that, I think.
Yeah, you are getting help in that actually. So one of the areas where I've been able to collaborate with Rep Fields and Rep Drummond and some of the other players has been around, particularly with the new commissioner of the Department of Transportation, just literally pushing back pretty hard. And actually, a lot of those letters are driven by Representative Fields, and they're pretty aggressively focused on multimodal use of highway. And it really does talk about slowing traffic down. And we've had a series of these meetings. We have more coming up this summer. The new commissioner has been very responsive to us recently. Once he got on his feet, December.
Good.
And so, for example, this report that's coming out on the bridge, we've been trying to get that out of the Department of Transportation since September of 2019. and literally, when we brought it up, he said, "Let me see what I can do." Within a week, we had a response saying, "This is what our lawyers tell us the timeline is. We're going to speed it up." And we actually were able to talk to the governor's office today, and actually drive the final piece to that. And the commissioner was completely responsive. And again, credit to the co-chairs of House Transportation Committee, which are Grier Hopkinson and Zach Fields. They were going to literally hold hearings to demand it. But we were able to avoid that because this commissioner is more responsive. So I'm committed to getting them to listen to us. We're doing this with the Fairbanks Airport Heights PEL. We're fighting with them every step of the way. When I say fighting, I mean we were really aggressive at the front end. And what they're doing is they're listening and they're doing that thing where they just listen. But we're asking for benchmarks to ensure that we're actually getting what we ask for. That does also deal with traffic calming. It deals with slowing speed limits down. So there's a whole array of these things, but we are getting a much better response today from the State Department, and I really give credit to the new commissioner for that.
And
not
Tom,
enough.
Thank you.
Tom, this is Cheryl. A little later in the agenda, we're going to be talking about how we got South Addition A and C streets were shut out of the transportation program, that 30 million that DOT allocates every year
Yep.
to Anchorage. And we
We saw
simply
that.
need, oh, you saw that.
Yeah, we saw that. So,
Okay, we're
so
looking
I'll-
at 500,000. If we could get 500,000 just to get the study going, then we would have our leg up. It's been so long with no help.
So part of the problem I face now, Cheryl, is that request it's not a request I can get into the budget at this point. I can try, but I'm almost certain I'll be told no. And so it doesn't mean I'm not going to try. I will try, but they have money. They can do these studies. There's other resources within the department. So let's talk about that. I'll listen later today, I'm a South Addition resident. I'm staying on for the whole thing. So I'll listen to that discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fran, for the complete street stock.
Any other questions for Senator Begich? Okay, seeing none. Is Representative Fields available? All right. Is there a representative from the mayor's office?
I think I saw Terrence on.
Terrence, you have the floor if you want.
You may be on mute, Terrence.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, we can hear
Good.
you.
Yeah, I just wanted to just give just a quick update that tonight we have a special assembly meeting and we're dealing with.
You cut out again there.
Terrence?
Can you hear me at all? Is that better?
Now we can.
How's
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Okay. Just quick, since we're having a little bit of a connection issue, we have a special assembly meeting going on tonight dealing with the net. So they're in sort of a work session now where they're going back and forth, a lot of questions being asked, and they're trying to sort out the details. And just a timeline, the Sullivan is expected to close into June. The design phase, they're about 35% complete with the community engagement sessions. And I'm not sure that did I freeze yet?
Yeah, you're
Can
kind
you
of
hear me okay there? All right. So we've had some of the community engagement sessions, 2 of them, 1 more planned. And I'm not sure if there will be a decision tonight as far as funding, but if anyone's interested, at least it's scheduled probably till 8 or 8:30 at the assembly chambers. And we'll get something. If there's a decision made tonight, we'll make sure that the community councils. And that's sort of the big thing on the agenda right now. We're just on a shortened timeline with the Sullivan. And that's all.
Hey, Terrence, if you can hear me, will you do me a favor? Will you just put
Sure.
in writing your report, just because you've been cutting in and out, and I can post that to our social media channels.
Excellent.
I'll put it on our Facebook and we can put it on our next door. Just because I think people would be really interested in hearing what you have to say.
Okay, sounds great. I'll do that.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm assuming that Assemblyman Constant is not available. He's probably in the assembly meeting this evening.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here from the police department or the fire department? Okay. President Bellamy from the school board, could you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Well, let's see. We are in the middle of end of year activities, lots of graduations going on. So if you've got a graduate in your hood, just please support them. This is our first in-person graduation in 2 years. I mean, that's going to be and that will be held, all of the big 8 graduations will be held at the Alaska Center. And so those are very, very, each family got 6 tickets. And if they need more, they can simply contact their school, and the school will help them figure out how they can get extra tickets. So that is a big part of what's going on. So lots of end of year celebrations. Graduation is just only one way that people are celebrating. As you know, we have a new superintendent, Dr. Jarrett Bryant. He will begin his transition or his onboarding with Dr. Bishop starting May 16th. And so, but if you haven't read about him and you'd like to know more about him, we will be holding several community engagements so that people can come and meet him, as well as continue to ask questions. We have 2 calendar surveys online. I think it's draft A and draft B. And I will put the links in the chat for you so you don't have to capture all this right now. But for the 23 through 26 school years, we have, we're selecting the calendar. So the calendar committee came together, came up with 2 versions, and we're seeking input on each of those versions of the calendar. Proposition 1, which was our bond, failed. And so now that the election has been certified, the board and staff will come together to debrief around around the what our next steps would be for that. Let's see, what else do I have? By this time of month, we've already had our meetings for the month because you guys meet late in the month. So our next meetings will be Tuesday, May 3rd. That's this coming week, next week. At that meeting, we will the board will be reorganized, and that will a new president or continuing. We'll let you know at that time. We will select new officers as well as close out the 21-22 school year. And of course, we invite everyone to continue to participate in our meetings. You may submit your testimony in writing. You may do it in person or telephonically. And I think with that, I'll just answer whatever questions you may have, because I will put my report in the chat so that you'll have access to all the links.
Martin, go ahead.
Hi, Martin.
Hey, hi, good evening. Hey, thank you for trying to coach me through doing a telephone report to you, but it just didn't work. So next time I try and talk to you, I'll come to the meeting. I know it's early on, and so you can tell me if it is. You know what we're going to be doing about Inlet View School?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, the bond failed, and so until we have our discussion, the board has not made any decisions.
I didn't think you had, but I thought I should ask. Thank you.
Yeah, but I will bring that to you, Martin. Now, one of the things that's going to happen is we rotate all of our community councils. So this South Edition will have a new board person. It won't be me starting July. So I'm here until July. So as soon as I get that information, I'll make sure you get it.
Well, thank you. I guess I just thought you would be with us forever.
Oh, I know, right?
Thank you. Thank you for the times you have been here.
Any other questions for President Bellamy? Okay, seeing none. Is there someone here from the Inlet View School?
I think we have Bonnie.
Oh yeah, hi, I'm here.
Please go ahead, Bonnie.
Short report from Inlet View. The kids are excited, like Miss Bellamy said, that everything's getting back to in-person, like 6th grade graduation and the end of the year barbecue. We have our in-person salmon run May 7th, which is going along really well, and we're excited. And the big news at Inlet View is that we are also getting a new principal. And so there's a committee forming to work on hiring with the district, but we don't know who it is yet. So that's about all we've got.
Any questions for Bonnie?
I don't have a question, but I believe next week is also Teacher Appreciation Week. Bonnie, that's sort of a big thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Is there anyone from Central Middle School?
Principal.
Yeah, hello. Name's Chris Bernosky. I am the new principal for Central Middle School of Science. Thank you very much for the invite. I do appreciate it. I've seen some of you folks before. So don't have big updates, but still pretty important for those of you who may have middle schoolers. Just came from the last regular season track meet for middle school at Clark Middle School. Proud to report Central has eaten up victories like candy. So fantastic athletic achievements at Central, as always. That's old news though. But for new news for folks, a couple of dates just in case you have family members in the middle level. May 4th at Begich 2:30, May 5th Wendler 1:30, and May 10th at Romig 3:30. Those are the last three, and this can all be found on the ASD website, but I thought I'd just throw it out there because we might have some Central and Romig families and whatnot. Those are the last three championships for the last middle school sporting activity, which is track and field. So that's finishing up. Anybody also, we're kind of talking about the end of the year. Some exciting things. We got 3 weeks left. If you're at the middle level, traditionally what'll happen is the second to last week is when a lot of the academics kind of get sewn up. So if you are kind of watching your middle schoolers' grades, you got about 2 weeks for that stuff to kind of get all happening. And then that last week for middle school, usually we do a lot of the celebration stuff. Kind of speaking of getting back to normal, Central is having its first dance in 2 years to kind of end the year. So again, we're getting back to normal. So having some fun for middle schoolers. So that's good news. But also too, the lotteries have closed. But if anybody is interested in Central Middle School of Science, please call my front office, 742-5100, and I'll give private tours. You'll get the deluxe treatment. So go ahead and give us a shout, and I'll give you and your family members your own private tour. No problem at all. We just want to see you. Big town, small school, small community vibe. It's nice. Everybody's it's like family. So thank you again for inviting me. If you have any questions, I'll stay on and answer them, but hope to see some of these faces time and again as you guys have more of these meetings. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Chris? Okay, seeing none. Is there someone here from the Chugach Optional School?
Hi, I'll introduce myself. I'm Joel Akers. I am going to be the incoming principal this fall for Chugach Optional. I'm glad to see all of you, and don't really have any updates for the school yet because I will be meeting with the staff in Clare Hill first thing tomorrow morning. So, but I'm just glad to be a part of this community and be glad to be the principal at Chugach. And again, I'll stay on for any questions that anybody might have for me.
Are there any questions?
This is Cheryl. I've got, if I could just mention to these folks, hopefully somebody will be contacting you from South Addition's Transportation Committee to brief you basically on our hopes to calm the traffic on the arterials that run by your schools your kids are crossing. So I just want to let you know we haven't gotten funding yet, but we haven't given up. And so we'll be looking up your phone numbers and giving you guys a shout, and hopefully your PTAs as well. Let the parents know.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Joel. I will give the president's report now.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
A couple more questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I see Sheila and Anna.
Well, I just wanted to, I would second Carol's comment. And I also wanted to point out that yesterday, Chugach Elementary School it blew away lots of winnings in that event that went on in terms of track and field. So I just wanted to say welcome, and we are looking forward to your participation in enriching the neighborhood around the school and the safety around the school for children.
Thank you. And I look forward to doing the exact same.
Good.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thanks.
Anna, did you?
Joel, are you also the principal of Inlet View or no? Okay.
No, right now I'm kind of holding like 3 positions. I'm technically the instructional coach at Bowman, where there's another open optional program. I am the assistant principal at Tyson in Mountain View. And now I'm stepping into Claire's position at Chugach Optional. So kind of wearing 3 hats right now. And I hope to be down to wearing 2 by next week. So.
Well, I have to.
Do we know who the principal is for Inlet View by chance, the new one?
I believe that they're just opening that up right now.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
And then Sheila, was your hand up from previous?
No, I'm not masterful at getting my hand down. So thank you.
And John, I think we want to go to Ms. Balmer to give a report on Denali Montessori.
Hi, I'm Kim Balmer. I'm a teacher at Denali Montessori. And we just wanted to share that we absolutely love having our school downtown near the park strip. We make good use of that area since we have a smaller campus. You'll see our kids out walking in the community pretty frequently. So I appreciate all the efforts to help calm the traffic. We go cross-country skiing on the baseball field and ice skate down there as well. We also have a new principal, Dina Beck, and we're very excited to have her join our learning community. And then the other thing that we had is our Denali Rocks fundraiser ends this week, and there will be an event on our playground with food trucks and music from 6:30 to, I believe, 8 or 8:30. And you're more than welcome to join us.
When is that event?
It's tomorrow evening.
Great, thank you.
Which food trucks?
Yeah, I can't remember. There was an ice cream truck and then another one that I was told about. I cannot recall. I am so sorry.
Nice.
Thank you very much. I will give the president's report. I attended the last Urban Design Commission meeting on April 13th, and it was very well attended. And the chair of the Urban Design Commission, provided an explanation of what had happened on the March 9th meeting. And she said that the site plan for the Inlet View School did not receive enough votes to get approval. And but they also made a motion to reopen the case for the Inlet View School site plan. But in order to provide enough public notice, they cannot address that case again until the June meeting. And because it's being reopened, the public participation is also being reopened. So you can comment and you can also attend the meeting and give testimony. And so we need to wait until June before we have another decision on the site plan for the Inlet View School. And that's about all I have. Daniel, go ahead.
Oh, I think Lois has a question for you real quick, John.
Oh, okay, Lois.
So I was on the planning page site yesterday, and it turns out that the Acreage School District has moved the Urban Design Commission meeting where they're going to address Inlet View to September.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Good.
Yeah, they are allowed to postpone it as an applicant. So they just didn't want a summer date.
Well, thank you for updating us. Martin? Martin, you're on mute. Martin?
Thank you. Yeah, I talked to the UDC today, and they said, yeah, they just didn't want to have a summer meeting, so they can move it till September. Though this postponement does require the approval of the planning department, which she thought they would get. That was Elizabeth Appleby I was talking to.
Thank you for that information.
Okay.
Anyone else on that site plan?
No,
Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the community plan at some point.
Okay,
yeah.
Sheila, that's
It's
coming
not
up.
the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're
on the agenda.
Okay, I'm not looking at the agenda, so I had to ask, excuse me.
We'll let you know in a minute or two.
All right.
Daniel?
Yeah, I'm next and I have nothing new to report.
Okay, is Ruth Ann here?
Yes, I'm here.
And if you,
To give you a little report on the FCC meeting, I can tell you they are marathon meetings. This last one went over 3 hours. Fortunately, there is somebody who is applying for a grant from the Alaska Community Foundation for a strengthening organization grant, and the funds would provide online Zoom trainings for and videos on how to conduct meetings, and there'll be community council member guide. So I think that'll be very helpful for FCC, and it'll be available to all the community councils. The new terms for the officers is opening up for May. They're taking nominations now. The term is from July to June. They need a new president. There's 4 positions in total that are open. I'm sorry, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, you have to be a delegate from a community council to be an officer. So if one was interested in being a delegate, you could have the community council move to have you before, I guess, maybe May, to become the new FCC delegate. For the first time, the treasurer has now been able to show an itemization of all the checks dispersed for payroll, bookkeeping, payroll taxes. That was pretty interesting. They wanted to be reminded that each council gets 1 bulk mailing per session, so don't forget to use that. They have building insurance for churches and the school district, so if you're having meetings, you don't have to be concerned about that. Reminder that May 1st is the tire changeover. May 14th, the Spenard Market opens. Saturday, May 7th is a picnic, or I guess a barbecue at the Dome to welcome Afghanistan refugees who have moved here to Anchorage, and it's being sponsored by veterans. And so that's Saturday, May 7th from 12 to 4. Everybody is welcome. The FCC will have its barbecue again at Valley of the Moon. Probably the first, I don't know if they had one last year, Valley Park. And I'm sorry, it'll be either in June or July. And I don't recall, and I couldn't find it posted on their page. And then finally, and I'll put the link to the survey, the municipality has opened up for its comments on the proposed CIPs. They offer, it's a survey of community councils. Everybody can go in. You can prioritize. It lists what our CIPs are in there. You can comment for prioritizing. The deadline for that is June 15th. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Any questions for Ruth Ann? Fran, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you, John. No questions, but speaking of officer positions, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that our officer positions will be coming up for reelection or election in June. And for people to start thinking if there's any position that they might be interested in, I think we're going to have a number of vacancies on our community council. So be a great opportunity for other people to step up and step into some of the positions. So just to put it out there for people to think about. Thanks.
Thank you, Fran. Any other comments or questions? Kathleen Hahn, are you here this evening?
No, Kathleen is traveling, but she did post her her report on our community council webpage.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Sheila, it's your turn. You're on mute, Sheila. Sheila, you're on mute.
I got to just hit it. Thank you. I had a little bit of a tragedy just now. I've got 2 documents that I wanted to share with you in real specific detail that describes basically what's going on with the plan. And so I have I don't know what happened, but they basically are gone and my computer doesn't seem to be turning on. So I'm just going to march through it because I'm pretty familiar with it because it's work I've been working on for a while. And so I'm going to start with just telling you what's been done so far. And so basically I was new, a while back, and there was a lot of information for review. And so I took the time to, first of all, read the plan that was on the table and then read the comments from the city and also the comments from the community. And then it seemed like the best thing to do was really just address those comments, because what the planning department did is they really outlined how you make a plan. And there were some big gaps in ours in terms of information that wasn't there, like critical information, and also a lot of documentation that needed to be there in terms of the process. And so basically, it also didn't have kind of the kind of protocols that are usually there in a community plan. And so what I did is I went through all the information associated with the comments, and it was really helpful because what that meant is that I really had to look at every single document that they were referring to and assess what was done and what was not done. And so once that was completed, I moved to basically developing kind of a response to that review, what was missing, what needed to be done. And then I put together a timetable, which just disappeared, but I'm hoping it's still somewhere in my computer, a timetable and actions that in order to get this plan done by fall 2022, there are some really critical things we have to do. And I know them. One of them is that we need to look at our goals and recommendations that have come from this plan and make sure that we're very comfortable with them and that they really fundamentally address things we really want to do. I don't think at this point the plan is asking too much anywhere. And there may be some opportunities to think about maybe even being a little stronger in some areas that we could talk about. So I would like I think there's 5 groups that worked on that, and county transportation. And I think it's worthwhile that very soon this month, we take a look at early May, we take a look at it and make sure that we aren't missing anything, because by the end of the month, we really need to pull those recommendations and those goals together and begin to present them to the public and make sure they're comfortable with them. And ideally, if we could get a outreach committee going fairly soon, within like the next couple days, 2 weeks at least, to advertise the event, and then for people who served on those committees to get together and make sure that they're comfortable, we'll be able to show those activities, show those goals, and those goals and objectives are really the core of the plan. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable, and we want to give people an opportunity to comment on them. And once we do that, we can look at those comments over the summer and integrate things that need to be integrated. And then in the fall, we can plan on having a draft plan done that includes those things. And ideally, we'll do something in maybe late September, early October, and we'll have a big kickoff again to have people come in and look at the plan and make sure we haven't had any problems with it. At that point, after we get feedback from the community, we can adjust again and then assume that our plan is at some level ready to be reviewed by the municipality. And that plan will probably also be reviewed by the public before we give it to the municipality. So there's a lot of public work and review to do. And if I've lost the, and the other thing that I've done is I've created a table of contents that tells exactly what's in each chapter, so that we clearly address everything that we're expected to address, and that they're in the right places and they're coordinated together in a way. And each one of the events we have where we engage the public has to have the explanation of how we did the outreach. And we also have to talk about who attended and what went on. And I have an understanding of that at this point. I think we can do that, but those are the pieces that are coming together. I think that the table of contents will be really useful because I think we'll post it. And I know people have been working on this for a long time. People have information, and we can make sure everybody's who's been working that their input's in the right place and supporting the plan. I'm so sorry I don't have my lists. I was going to email them to John before we got together, and I didn't do it, and I sure regret it right now, John. So I'm hoping that they're in my computer, and if my computer doesn't start, I'll take it somewhere and just get the hard drive out of it. So I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. I can't hear you. What did you say?
Thank you for that update, Sheila. And I'm sure we'll find those reports.
I'm hoping. I have one question. I would say that my biggest challenge right now is technology, because I've been working on a single iPad, and it would be great if somebody who's really good. I have all my stuff together. If somebody could come and help me set up a couple screens so that I could like lay out plans on multiple screens, that I would appreciate it. If there's somebody out in our community could give me the hand, that would be great.
So anyone who has technical expertise and time to help Sheila, that would be wonderful.
I'll be so grateful. Thanks. Are there any questions or anxieties or concerns or something that you're wondering about in terms of this process?
When it comes to integrating the comments that we received on the draft plan and sort of revisiting those goals, who's going to be sort of in charge of that, of taking the comments and seeing where does that line up with the draft plan, or what do we need to take from the draft plan and change or discard?
I'll do that. And the truth is that it's kind of what I've done my whole life, is that I'm listening, and I've gone back and looked at every single value. I've looked at all of it, and where I've seen things that are kind of missing, I've made the comment. I talked to Cheryl the other day. I thought, I think we've got to be harder here because, traffic was the biggest topic we had. It really was. So I was kind of pushing her and saying, do more. And she's not used to having people do that. And so, I'm looking at it, and I can't have an opinion. I really just have to respect exactly what the public said. And that doesn't mean everything is equal, because it isn't. There are also standards we have to meet and things like that. That's why we also put it back out there for people to see, to make sure that they feel like they've been, and they know that they've been listened to, or there's an explanation of why they haven't been listened to. So, I mean, they're always, I mean, why their idea wasn't taken. Yeah, so, and that review of the public is a big part of it. And it's really what was kind of missing in our first effort. We didn't have an explanation of how things had happened. And we really were missing some big pieces. It was, and one thing is that plan does have a lot of information about the community that we can mine from it in terms of describing ourselves. But it didn't really offer up how to move forward. So that's what we're going to work on.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheila, this is Cheryl. We just have to thank you so much for taking this on and rescuing us from our.
Yeah.
I won't go through it.
I would be so grateful if somebody would help me just deal with my technology, and because it's pretty fun for me to do. But I've had a lot. I've had a lot of problems. GCI completely knocked me off everything last week, and for no particular reason. So anyhow, I'm enjoying doing it. It's an honor, and I'm glad to be part of it. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for your work. And thank you all.
Thank you, Sheila. So going on to old business, Cheryl, you have the floor on the transportation issues that you wanted to bring up today.
Okay, it looked like Breeze Memorial was first before me.
That might be a previous agenda, Cheryl.
Yeah, for the record,
Okay.
there's nothing called Breeze Memorial anymore.
Okay.
Tom, how do we refer to it now, just for our
Call it
edification?
the North, I think it was the North G Street plans.
Walkway?
Yeah, something like that. I'll have to look it up, but I will look it up and let you know in the chat.
Okay.
Well, Cheryl, you're up.
Alrighty. Well, you've heard little hints that a few months ago, South Edition decided to apply for capital funding through the transportation folks, that's federal highway dollars, and through the state capital system. And it sounds like, from what I hear, we might be able to start working on the local capital system. But so far, we've been blanked out. The biggest issue, from what I can tell, the transportation people don't really feel obligated to implement the land use plan, or Sheila, her comprehensive plan that was produced now 20 years ago and was just brilliant. So we are left with land over on, for instance, A Street, prime downtown residential land that's not really desirable for fancy development because, or unfancy, not prime for development because the roadways are so hostile to people who want to walk or bike or raise children there. So we are in conflict as a city. I talked with staff today again, and they talked about their main priority being safety, but then no acknowledgement that 45-mile-an-hour road in the middle of town is not safe. So I guess the executive committee asked me to draft correspondence for this, and I did. I think it can be used for talking points and such. The main issue here is that we need warm bodies, just like Sheila needs help with her technology. We need help reaching out to the schools, to the assembly, maybe back into the legislature, trying again to let people understand what we're up against and get some help with this. So I've got a one page. Is it okay for me to read this out loud?
Yes.
I'll go ahead. South Edition Community Council seeks your support to fund the redesign and reconstruction of A and C streets in downtown Anchorage into complete streets. And then we have 3 bullets: to reduce vehicle speeds to allow safe walking and access to public transit. Number 2, to promote infill and redevelopment on prime residential lands within walking distance of both downtown and midtown. Number 3, provide safe walk home for students at Denali and Chugach Elementary and Central Middle Schools. all adjacent to A and C. We seek to lower the speeds of downtown roadways by amending Anchorage's transportation improvement program because it came out without our recommendations. Now we're asking the Assembly and AMATS to amend that draft. Next paragraph, public comments are due to AMATS by May 5. And the Assembly holds its public hearing on May 10. So that's why we need our volunteers active soon. Posted speed limits on A and C downtown are already too high at 35 miles an hour posted. Actual speeds are above that, well into the 40s, with no signalized crossings between 9th and 15th with all those schools. The next paragraph, we object to AMAT's latest TIP funding, high-speed traffic and volume over long-term community goals of health, safety, infill and redevelopment, and just plain livability. Hundreds of millions of transportation dollars literally are budgeted, but do not reduce vehicle trips, think climate change there, or implement urban infill and redevelopment. We ask that AMATS fund the first step of studying A and C's transition into complete streets at a cost of $500,000. That study is already adopted in Anchorage's Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It simply needs to be funded. In the name of geographic fairness, Eagle River Road rehabilitation was funded at a cost of $60 million, that's 60 million, over the much higher ranked A and C Street Complete Streets project. Combined with the $94 million being spent on the Glen Highway expansion, we must object that the TIP is not implementing Anchorage's comprehensive plan or land use plans. 2 more to go. For example, it is alarming that AMATS prioritizes an unwanted new freeway off-ramp over at Diamond Mall through a sleepy neighborhood at Vanguard and Scooter near Diamond at an initial cost of $18.7 million and a total cost of $60 to $80 million, 60 to 80 million. Over the construction of A and C would cost $5 million. So that's comparing these projects to a $5 million project we're asking for. South Addition neighborhood, downtown Anchorage, our public health and safety are harmed while AMATS continues to spend money bringing more high-speed vehicles into Anchorage rather than making transportation safer in our valued sustainable urban communities. Please act now to amend the TIP and provide $500,000 in the coming year to finance a complete street study for A and C downtown through South Addition. And then thank you, Fran, for your graphic, showing the graphic there. The state was kindly had given us some traffic studies. The state safety group worked hard and gave us safety studies, but it does show that we've got too many 40-mile-an-hour and more higher speed cars coming down those roads. What I'm asking for tonight is your amendments, your comments, and then permission to circulate this as it represents South Addition's opinion, policy opinion.
So Cheryl, are you proposing that this be a resolution?
You know, John, my brain didn't go there. I thought of it as a letter. I think if I can just get it adopted as language, I'm not prepared to in resolution form at this point. And I'd like to get going because of the time frame for our comments to be made public.
What's the deadline?
May 5, our comments to the transportation folks, and May 10, it's the assembly.
I move that we support this letter as an expression of the challenges in South Addition. Is
there a second? Martin, did you second it?
I
Okay.
did, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I have discussion.
Okay.
I'm in support of the motion. However, I think I would like to make sure that we allow time for folks to either add in the chat anything in particular to add to this to make it stronger, or also I'm advocating that others who support these projects on A and C and this letter and work can maybe partner with our transportation committee and it sounds like you could submit individual comments, you could submit letters to the editor, you could be contacting the assembly, you can contact the planning group at the municipality. So there's a whole palette of options that anyone who feels strongly, and of course for this A and C because it's for our community council, but this is really a bigger issue that I know, I can't remember who for the beginning of this meeting talked, maybe it was Sheila that talked about complete streets and Fran put in something, complete streets. So, there's a ton of data that the DOT has provided to Cheryl in the past, documented speeds through these two corridors. And with the increase in pedestrian fatalities that are happening in the city, there needs to be a swift change in direction with AMATs. And anyway, I'll just stop there. So in terms of discussion, to capture anyone's input to add to this letter, as well as in the chat, and then actions that people feel, that they can step up and take on.
Go ahead, Sheila.
I was just going to say, I live by C Street, and let me tell you, they go way faster than 40 miles an hour on C Street. On Friday nights, they drag down there. They're going over 100 miles an hour. And often the regular traffic there is around 50 or 60 miles an hour. They hit the top of the hill and they just shoot down towards 15. So I would say you could really, it's easily into the 90s. I mean, it's easily, and people get busy and occasionally go really fast going around other cars. So it's way over 40.
Sheila, just for your information on L Street, DOT did a similar study and they found more than one car in an hour going 90. So
yeah, I think
it's been documented over on L, but not over on, I know it's going on. I'm not questioning that.
Yeah, and then I also agree about the idea of reaching out to our neighbors and our partners, and particularly other community councils. I mean, down the road a bit, I think the more of a stir we make, the more attention we get. And the other thing is we really need to work closely with our legislature and our representatives there about this problem, and the school district.
Thank you, Sheila. Ruth Ann, did you have a comment?
Well, I just want to be sure that we have a motion out there, and if we're amending the motion or dropping that motion and moving to put another motion, I just want to make sure that that's stated clearly so that I can capture that in the minutes. Thank you.
I made the motion, and I will add to that motion that we reach out to other entities to assist us in addressing this problem.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mitchell, go ahead.
Yeah, I would also like to amend it to include L Street between 13th to 15th is also school zone and deals with the same issues as the A and C.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but this is Ruth Ann again. So then procedurally, I'm not sure we have the amendment, but it's based upon the letter. So are we actually just making a motion now that's separate from the letter? Or are you asking to have the letter revised to
I'm asking-
incorporate what your friendly amendments?
I'm asking to have the letter revised.
I think we
Okay.
should have, just like we would a resolution, even though it's not a resolution. The motion is to adopt this open letter, the language of this letter. And something I would like clarity on is who will be responsible for circulating the letter to various entities. But if we have the main motion is to adopt the letter, then the amendments would be to revise the language. And that's the same thing we would do with a resolution.
And Daniel, we have a little transportation committee with Anna Boson
Yes.
and Tomash
Small but
and
mighty.
Martin and Sheila. And pardon?
I said small but mighty.
Well, we wish. And now we just need to make it rain all the time. So we don't want to be out in our gardens. So
So
get
what-
on the phone.
The
What I,
transportation committee will circulate the letter.
good.
Is
I'm,
that-
I'm comfortable with the chair's suggestions as how we should approach this. I want to just do it in the most effective way.
I'm comfortable with everything that's been said here tonight.
Go ahead, Senator Begich.
I didn't have anything. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
It's nice to know you're there.
I think Bike Anchorage would be interested in
Oh,
supporting.
very good point. Yeah, they're very, very instrumental for all this.
John, I was just in the chat. I'd written for you to send those notes on to me, Cheryl, to the office, please.
Yes, I saw your note and I will do that.
Great.
So does anyone object to the philosophy behind this letter? Is there something missing, or is there any objections to having the Transportation Committee proceed to refine this letter and circulate it?
With help from our friends, please.
Well, Cheryl, I think you have a lot of support for this, and I think it seems like you want a little bit more time to refine it before you actually submit it. Is that true?
Oh, I can do it overnight. It won't be a problem. I think what I'm going to do is just add I and L. That's what I heard. I heard L. You only want L, or do you want I and L?
I and L and increase the speed comment.
Yeah, I can document or put in the I and L speeds as well. I do have a concern. We just doubled our cost to $1 million.
What does that mean?
It means that instead of asking for 500,000 for a study, we're asking for $1 million for a study. As far as I know, maybe other people are more informed than I am, but I believe we just doubled our cost, our ask.
I guess my point is don't dwell on the cost part of it, and to dwell, instead we want to focus on the
Safety.
the context and getting those things funded. They have numbers already in their application. Mhm.
Actually, the applications don't have cost as far as I know.
One thing
Maybe
I
I'm wrong.
think could make this letter a little bit stronger would be to have a little bit of data about pedestrian fatalities in Anchorage. That's something we're hearing, or not even fatalities, even pedestrians or cyclists being injured. And there have been.
I tried to do that when I wrote the letter, and I was not able, in searching for maybe 20, 30 minutes, I was not able to find a summary document data on PED injuries or deaths. Just a random newspaper articles.
I can find that for you, Cheryl, tonight.
Oh,
I sent you some comments on this earlier, but yeah, it was like at the 11th hour.
She's
well,
going potty.
6
She's
o'clock.
going potty.
thank you. I look forward to that.
Maybe even something highlighting, the rates of pedestrian and cyclist injuries in Anchorage compared to cities of similar size. Might just kind of drive home the point.
I agree. We'll see what Anna's got and we'll put them in.
Awesome.
And maybe what we'll do is just take, if Anybody who wants to join the transportation committee, you are welcome. And then we'll have the committee do the final language. How's that? Instead of me as an individual.
I think that's a good idea.
I concur. Well, shall we take a vote?
We first have me read the motion back to make
Yes.
sure that I've captured what you want.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion that we support the letter as an, well, I'll put in Cheryl, I guess I need to see the letter up to put the specifics in, but the letter read into the record as an expression of the challenges in South Edition. We will reach out to other entities to assist us in addressing this same problem and include additional language as discussed, additional language and comments as discussed during the South Edition committee meeting. And we give the authority to the Transportation Committee to revise the letter to reflect the comments and to circulate the final version.
And the two comments that should be specified are L Street speeds, and then also bicycle and pedestrian injury and fatality data that's available.
Correct. And I think in the title of the motion, if you record it in the minutes, Ruth Ann, maybe instead of saying South Edition, we should say in the urban core, because we want to bring downtown into this as well, because this really affects the whole urban core.
Okay, thank you.
I don't, well, you know, downtown is in transition. I'm concerned about that, but we can sure discuss it.
What are your thoughts on that? Would you rather have it be more specific to South Edition? I mean, we made the request, but I'm just thinking that if we want to get other community councils on board to support our
yeah, right.
I just want to have the language be inclusive of other community councils, and I don't want it just to be perceived as South Edition whining that we
You know, it might be a little late in the game to get them, but we have supported other councils for so many years. I just trust that they will come through also. And I thought it might be worthy to survey them and see how they fared in the tip with their projects.
Right.
Because I know that Airport Heights is being threatened again with the Burgaw extension. So that kind of thing. It is appropriate to bring in those other councils.
Yeah. And to support them too.
And to support their work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the motion and Ruth Ann just read it back. Did you want to state it back one more time, or are we comfortable taking a vote at this point, do we think, John?
I don't mean to have those hands up.
I think we're comfortable. Let's go ahead and vote.
So normally what we do, the easiest way to do it is if you go to your reactions, and that's the little happy face. And then you can hit the green arrow if you are a yes, or the red X if you are no, whether or not. So if you put a green arrow up, you are voting to let the Transportation Committee proceed with refining and then distributing this letter that Cheryl's brought forward. And if you put a red X up, that means no, you don't like this letter and you don't want it to be sent on behalf of South Edition. So I'm seeing 15 green arrows on my count. Now I have some folks that don't have responses. Maybe we give another minute or so.
Lynn Halquist, did you have a question?
No, I meant to raise my hand to vote yes.
Oh, okay.
We'll count your vote. Great. So it looks like 17 in the affirmative, and I don't see any opposed.
Motion passes. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, guys. We'll be knocking on your doors looking for volunteers.
So we're now we're now ready for community comments. Anyone who would like to comment on anything, and we have 3 minutes apiece.
Well, I actually do have something I would like to bring forward, and this dovetails very nicely. I recently attended an Airport Heights Community Council meeting, and they passed a resolution that was also passed by the Fairview Community Council. It pertains to the Pell study, the highway to highway connection. And so I offered to bring it to our community council and put it before us and see if we would support them by passing either the same resolution or tweaking the language and passing a very similar resolution. So if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen and present.
Sure.
it. So, and I'll share this and we'll post it on the SACC website as well. So I don't necessarily need to read through the whole thing, all the whereases right now, but we will post it and folks can read it. But essentially what they're asking here is they want more public process. The sense that I'm getting from Airport Heights and Fairview community councils is that DOT is maybe listening, but not really providing enough sense that concerns are being heard. And Senator Begich alluded to that earlier. So they'd like more public process. We can see that in this, be it resolved. And then what Fairview is asking and what Airport Heights is supporting is that in the name of pedestrian safety, multimodal access, and environmental justice, they would like the project to be done as a cut and cover project. So folks in our community council may feel differently about that, but I think it's just worth thinking about, this highway to highway connection really has the potential to be transformative for the Fairview neighborhood and connecting it. And there's been such a lack of investment in that neighborhood because of uncertainty regarding this project. So I just would put this before us, and like I said, we can post it and then we can vote at the next meeting whether this is something that we'd also like to pass in support.
Daniel, where is cut and cover in here? I am not finding it.
It's the final, actually that the not quite the finals, the penultimate be it resolved right here. Do you see my cursor? I'm sharing my
Yes.
screen.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Last time I listened in on Airport Heights, they were trying very hard to be supportive of Fairview. There's the quote was, if it's just a little bit more, let's just do the cut and cover. Trouble is, it's about $1 billion with a B. The last time I saw the budget, I have been trying to get through to HDR, the contractors, and get that old budget for the cut and cover, but it's humongous. So it's not something I think it can be argued that they could do a complete streets through there and accomplish their goals for a lot less money. But I know there's a lot of love for that cut and cover.
Well, if I could speak on that, John, just Fairview's quite adamant about the cut and cover, and I know it's more money, but it's also a better way of doing community in the long run. And that is something that I can honestly speak for Fairview when I say that is something they would be unwilling to compromise on. And they recognize that may delay the project over time. And, they have a series of steps in that process, one of which is getting rid of the authorization for the Kinnick Bridge. They hold eminent domain over Gamble to Ingra area, which has affected them. That's where the cut and cover would come, part of the highway to highway project. They had to convince me, Cheryl, but they did. And they did very, very effectively. They've done a lot of work on this. So I recognize there's a higher cost. But in this instance, this is something that the community has felt quite strongly about. And I would just add those thoughts to it.
I guess just, we could go on all night, but the other impact was over there at Rogers Park, because they, I haven't heard from them lately, but I imagine they don't want a freeway. And if Fairview gets a freeway, it's going to impact Rogers Park and Midtown as well. At a time when we're trying to reduce vehicle travel, not add to it. I hear you.
I'm not interested in debating tonight the issue because I'm not.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that I engaged.
I have a comment on this. This is Sheila. And one of the things, I was on the assembly when some big decisions were made related to the bridge. And in order to create support for the bridge, we had to have a direct route out of the port, which at that point, the plan is that we would do the highway to highway, and actually C Street traffic would go down through I'm having a pause here, down Gamble, and actually not impact downtown or South Addition. And in a way, we really need to support that plan. It may be expensive, but it will reduce impact in terms of traffic in so many other areas that should be reduced, that I think it's worth it. And it also, at the same time, it was at that point, the speed on C was 35, and we increased it to accommodate the truck. So I think it's ultimately an expensive thing, but I also think it's a transformative thing that could make a lot of good in town.
Thank you, Sheila. Martin, do you have a comment?
I just need some clarity. What cut and cover is a new term to me. So if somebody would explain it, thank you.
Sure. Cut and cover is effectively the structure is for the highway is built literally underground, and then you cover it, and the ground above is used for residential and retail. There's a series, if you want, Martin, I can get you a series of it'd take me a while, but I could probably locate the Fairview diagrams that show it. It's actually quite interesting. Some parkland sometimes is above is part of the cover. Retail is sometimes used as part of the cover. That's been some proposals have done that as well. So that's what. And just on a side note, isn't your birthday coming up right about now? Somewhere around here. You're on mute.
So I've heard, and yes, I would be interested in the Fairview plan. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, to that point, I think Fairview, they've put in a lot of thought about this, and I can try to get a document. Alan Kemplin, I think, has a white paper on what they'd like to see. And what they would like to see is, on the top of that cut and cover, their neighborhood be connected and walkable. And so I think there is the thought that they want to safely facilitate pedestrian travel and make that area more connected while getting necessary traffic through. So, but we can debate this at the next meeting once folks have had a chance to sort of digest the language of the resolution and think about whether or not they just disagree or they agree or they want to support it. So since I think we're still in our open community comments, Tom, you had your hand up earlier. Was there a different topic that you wanted to speak on?
I just wanted to say very quickly, I've forgotten to mention, I put it in the chat, but I forgot to mention that we also got $2 million, which has been an ongoing match for the downtown library in the old city hall. And we haven't had a library since LUSAC effectively was built downtown, and we got that money in the budget. And
Tom, could you repeat? You have money for a library where?
Downtown. $2 million in the old city hall, $2 million. Wow. It's part of a project Blythe, Marston, and others have been working on, and they've assessed about $8 million in other money. And I should have mentioned it because it's obviously going to be of value to us in South Addition.
Such a big deal.
It's a big deal. And secondarily, there was There's been an effort by the Rasmussen Foundation to build effectively a $60 million ask to the legislature for a housing trust. That, of course, wasn't going to happen, 60 million being dropped into that, and 50 million for a child care trust. What we did instead is we've begun work on some trust legislation to create these things like the Parks Foundation. But we have also put 5 million of seed money in the Community Foundation for the beginning of the housing trust, which we have about, I guess the Rasmussen's identified, and their partners, about $8.7 million in match already for that. And then an additional 5 million will go to the Department of Health and Social Services to augment child care reimbursements. So I thought those are two that I should have mentioned because they do have an impact on our schools populations and other populations. Sorry about not mentioning them earlier.
Fran.
Ruth Ann, do you have a question?
Well, if I could just quickly interject.
Fran.
Yeah, sorry. Daniel, do you have that resolution? Could you put it in the chat?
Yes, the health study one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ruth Ann?
Yes, thank you. With Senator Begich mentioning the housing trust, that I wanted to go back and ask under item 2, under old business, we had Harry's proposed resolution for an affordable housing trust fund. And I don't recall that we addressed that in any way or that we chose to.
Harry wasn't able to join us this evening. So I think we're going to postpone that till Harry can participate with that discussion.
Okay, and then Senator Begich, does Harry's resolution, does that in any way work in with the housing trust that the Rasmussen Foundation is coming up with seed money for, and what you were just referring to? Are they?
My guess is that they deal with the same topic, but I don't believe that they are connected. And the Rasmussen money was not an issue that we pushed on our caucus. And so I don't know if it's competing trusts, but my goal would be to try to make sure that all the concepts work together to ensure we had affordable housing. And I think that was the intent of the Rasmussen money. But the other reason why they didn't get the full 60 is because people knew that there were different ideas out there. And so because it was, and it was an outrageous amount of money to ask for, frankly. But what we did do is agree to the 5 million, made sure that it would go to the Community Foundation to be held in trust, as opposed to the Rasmussen Foundation. And then the idea is to develop the components of it. So that's effectively seed money. But, they're doing their own thing. They have always done their own thing. I haven't always been on the same page with the foundation. But I want to find ways to make all these resources combine together. They should combine together.
I think I can answer that question, Ruth Ann. Harry's resolution is specific to encouraging the municipality of Anchorage to start a housing fund. And there's some other cities that have done that. I believe Juneau just did that. Ketchikan, I think, has done that. So I guess it would work alongside what Tom's talking about at the state level, but it would be separate.
But she's bringing up a good point, which is, would it take the wind out of the sails? And that's not the intent. And that's why it's not 60 million. That's why it's only 5 million. You said it better than I did.
I think Mitch has it.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I have a comment on something different if you want to finish the topic on or discussion on this item. But yeah, you can get to me next.
I don't see any other hands up, so I think you're up.
All right, I just wanted to mention, I know probably a lot of people read the Sunday news article on the ADN that had some quotes from Zach Fields, our representative here that represents South Addition. But just so everybody's on the same page, I'm going to repeat them here. There is a special place in hell for people who oppose schools that kids in a neighborhood need. We will keep Inlet View open despite your reprehensible attempts to shut the school down. And it goes on to say in the same text message, I strongly encourage you to move out of South Addition. This neighborhood supports schools, and if you don't, you should leave now. And this text message was sent to two of my neighbors. And just the language, the tone, and just kind of the threatening message there, I find to be very disturbing. I mean, for any neighbor to be sending to another neighbor, but in particular, an elected representative that represents our community to be sending it to a constituent. And I had discussed with some of my neighbors potentially putting together a resolution to introduce, just emphasizing what the values are in at least that I see, and pretty much all my other neighbors see, as being important values in our community. And I would like to have a little bit of discussion about this if we could. I'm just going to quickly review the things that I find important in the community and why I like the South Addition community. Is that I believe that the community supports and encourages civic engagement in a civil manner and voter participation in elections. And the neighborhood is welcoming to all and doesn't support discrimination or exclusion of residents based upon their political affiliation, beliefs, or personal positions on ballot measures. And that we value the elections, and we think that it makes our government more representative and accountable. And that we also hold our elected representatives to a high standard of conduct and expect respectful, non-threatening dialogue and communications from elected officials who represent our South Addition community. And I'd just like to kind of hear what other people's thoughts are on this. I don't know if we need to move to a motion to censure, to basically read these values out to Representative Fields so he can understand where the South Addition community is coming from or not. So I just like to open it up, I guess, for discussion. And those are my thoughts.
So Mitch, because we don't have something on the agenda to address this, I do think that we should maybe wait until the next meeting if there's something that you want to present that people could consider. But we didn't have anything on the agenda to discuss this kind of motion or letter or anything for this evening.
I understand, and we were tight on time given the fact that this article came out last Sunday as far as getting it on the agenda. But I wanted to put it out there and the opportunity for public comment to see if this is something that is worthy of getting into a final draft for a resolution.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, please.
I found his words extremely offensive and really out of line for a public official. And I don't even know if it's necessary to have some sort of formal response, because I think anyone I've talked to that read it was appalled by his behavior. I would support something along that line if we have an opportunity to talk about it. But I have a feeling that SACC is confused about the values of this community, and he may have some challenges around that as he pursues his future.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but my name's Heidi Hansen, and this is the first time I've attended this meeting. And I just wanted to say, as a newcomer to the meeting, I really appreciated your comment, Mitch, about the kind of community you expect the neighborhood to represent. So for whatever that's worth.
Thank you, Heidi.
Here's what I think we should do. I really like the idea of a restatement of the values of our neighborhood. When I read that article, I guess, we know it really wasn't news to any of us that there have been differing opinions in our community, in our neighborhood, and that those opinions come with a lot of passion and a lot of emotion. And we've seen that for both people who have worked hard on the design for a long time and want to see it move forward, and also from those who have design concerns and how the proposed design would impact the neighborhood. So things have been tense. I think, Mitch, you are right that an elected official, there's a higher expectation that comes with that. But at the same time, Zach is a parent with kids too, and he's got a vested interest in the school. And when I read that article that came out, one of the things that really bothered me was, well, number one, nobody from the community council has ever been, the executive board has ever been asked for comment. I think that's interesting. Number two, the narrative that's kind of been put into place on social media and in reporting that our community is the reason that the school bond failed. And there may be those in our neighborhood who voted no, but I guess I'm a little bit bothered about that, because I think that we were the big ticket for Inlet View, and I think even some of those who have voiced concerns with the design still were in agreement with wanting a new build, a replacement for Inlet View. And so now it's become this narrative of, wealthy South Addition, they screwed over the bond proposal. And I hope that in your, if you do bring a resolution forward, we can really emphasize how much we value education in our neighborhood, in our community. And it concerns me too, because I think there's a lot of those outside of our neighborhood who don't really care about Inlet View. There's other schools in the wider Anchorage area who they've already had upgrades, or there are those that don't value public education. And we're seeing a lot of these a lot of this rhetoric about CRT or other concerns about public education that I think would have maybe caused people to vote no on the bond. So if we're going to put a statement of our values out there about what our neighborhood believes in, I think I want it to be something that is peacemaking in a way and doesn't further add to a divide, doesn't flare up tensions further, and that acknowledges that there's been a robust debate in our community about the future of Inlet View, the design, but that we really support Inlet View, the school. So I guess those are my thoughts. I've talked long enough.
Thank you, Daniel. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I would just say, I want to comment on it just to say, I work with Zach and I work with all those other legislators. And there's never, I get a lot of letters. I've gotten death threats in my job, and at least twice I've received death threats. I've received threats of physical harm, bodily harm. I've received them in writing. I've received them. Some of them are stupid enough to leave them on my voicemail, which gets sent right to the FBI. Here's the thing. None of that matters. There's certain things that should be, there are certain expectations of public service. And one of those expectations is that you got elected. I want to align myself, Daniel, with your comments about peacemaking is the thing, but there's also the importance of acknowledging the harm. And the harm here is really not a respectful harm. This was a harm that was harsh words, angry words. I understand that he, at least in one instance, offered something of an apology to one of the folks, and then couldn't, and then again made another statement. So we don't need to hash it out. What I would say is, I have taken it on as part of my responsibility as, I guess, the senior member of the delegation, to have a conversation with him and to talk about the harm. You've brought it up here in the meeting, so you've given me the opportunity to literally do that without having to implicate individuals in that discussion. But it's not acceptable behavior from a public official, whether they're in my party or the other party, whether they're representing downtown or Matsu, to treat any constituent in a manner that is that disrespectful. And so it does deserve, at the very least, it deserves my comment and engagement in the process. The issue you've brought up, Mitch, of a statement of values is a brilliant idea, because it's a peacemaking idea. And there's ways to couch the language. The message is heard, but let's tell people who we are, not who we don't like, and let's not repeat the harm. So I think if that were crafted for next week, I think, or next month, I'm sorry, or whenever we're meeting next, I'm not sure when we're meeting next, but I certainly would find myself supporting it, and I think all of us would, or could, because that's who we are as people. But let's move it forward. People write their own epitaphs in this world, and I certainly think ours as a neighborhood should be, we fought for what we valued, and we stood for those values. And if other people want to have a different opinion, we don't have to share it. And so I could support where you're going with that, Mitch. Those were my friends that received those notes, and I just don't think that that's the way a public person should comport themselves. I just felt I should say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much, Senator, for that insight. Kara, go ahead.
Hi, I'm not defending that Zach as a public servant should not have said what he said. But when we're talking about releasing a statement of values, so people know who we are, who are people? Who's the audience for this? Is it meant to shame Zach? It just feels kind of like, I feel like it's a little sanctimonious at this point, to be honest. And I feel like to say that the South Edition is saying this, I know not everyone in the South Edition comes to the meetings or everything. I just don't understand who the audience is for that. If we're talking about being respectful and talking to people, it seems like back seems kind of a more human thing to do than releasing some kind of a statement that basically is saying that we have more morals than he does or something. It just makes me uncomfortable.
Thank you, Kara. Ruth Ann, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I would just like to keep the distinction, Daniel, I like what you said, and you were talking about Inlet View and the bonds. And I think there's a big distinction between what you were referring to and what the issue of what our representative said to people in our neighborhood. I don't know how, I like what Senator Begich said, that, maybe him as the senior, it's the person, should be taking this up. I think what Zach said was so out of line that, maybe as individuals, we contact him and let him know that. But I do want it to be distinguished between what Zach said and where we stand with respect to Inlet View and the community and our values. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Any other comments?
I guess maybe I'll add, I think Kara really captured the sense of the difficulty here, which is and she's right? We don't want to, it's not about, we're better than this. So let me start with the dialogue, which I will do. And I think what Ruthann just said makes sense as well, which is individuals probably should touch base with his office as well, or with him personally, and let him know how they feel. And I mean, just, you got to set standards at some point. And I certainly, he's an ally of mine. He's somebody I work with to get the things you need all the time. But I have to have this conversation sometimes with members of my own family. And this is a conversation, he's in my family in a way, and I got to have this conversation with him. So I will be having it.
Thank you, Senator Vegas, for taking on that responsibility for us. Are there any other comments on any other thing besides what we've just been talking about?
Hey, my name's Kathleen. I'm from JBear. I just have a couple things for you guys if you have time.
Sure.
Okay, so this summer we're going to be doing our air show again. This is going to be the first year we do it since 2018. That's going to be the last weekend of July 30th and 31st. There's a couple events that are coming up. This weekend, the Last Frontier Honor Flight is going to be happening at the airport. It's a group of veterans that went out to Washington, D.C. They'll be coming back, and it's open to the public. Anyone can go and receive them. That's going to be on April 30th at 3 p.m. And then there's a Memorial Day event happening downtown. Anchorage Remembers. It will be at 9:30 a.m. on Memorial Day. General Crum from 11th Air Force will be out there speaking. And then let's see, the 48th Annual Arctic Valley Run is happening on Saturday, June 4th at 10 a.m. I'll post all this in the chat too, with links and things. And then just a reminder to make sure that if you're recreating on JBear or around JBear, to use the iSportsman app. We do have live fire training that goes on the training areas outside base, that anybody can walk onto. So just make sure you're utilizing that app. And then if you have any questions, that you can direct that to public affairs at JBear. And that's all I have for you guys.
Thank you, Kathleen. Martin, do you have a comment?
I thought we were going to hear from Bradley Coy, according to the agenda.
He couldn't, the study is not ready. So we've delayed that again.
Well, that's fine. And I enjoyed all of the meeting. I was looking forward to that as well.
A.T. Compton. Go ahead. It looks like I lost her or him.
So this is a female. My name's Amanda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault. I had it on mute. How are you? I have just a brief comment on the heels of the discussion of SACC. And so I'm not sure, I don't attend these frequently enough to understand the rules all the time. May I say a comment about that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I live adjacent. I'm adjacent to the Inlet View proposed site on the south side. I'm at the end of M Street. And as a member of this kind of group that feels some oppositional sentiment, I can say that the sentiment in Zach's text is not exactly isolated to Mr. Fields. I've certainly had some pretty negative phone calls, emails, and texts received and conversations from people that weren't quite as robust, I will say, as that. But I think when we're talking about education, which is such a positive, good goal and objective, I think it can be very easy not to understand how you might be coming across. So I think that's relevant when we're talking about stating our values as a community, to know that, like, not all of us are necessarily practicing these altruistic values. And I am afraid sometimes that when you have such a positive objective like a school, that it's easy to let that, I don't quite know the right word to say, but basically have your comments cloaked and shielded because they are for a better cause. And so I would like us all to just be aware of how we're treating our friends and neighbors, because it really has been a struggle. As somebody who grew up on 12th and P and has been a homeowner for the last 2 decades in the area, decade, I guess, to receive these from my friends and family. So even though this is for a school, please treat your neighbors well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other comments? All right, well, seeing no more comments, then the meeting is adjourned.
Hi, everybody.
Night all.
Enjoy the nice weather.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm hitting end.